Krishna. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity and for the very warm introduction. Yes, I'm no newcomer to the Birmingham Sangha, and many of you know me because I spent quite some time with you and you're all like family. So what we will do today is we will go through the Katha in a very, I would say, um, um, organized way in terms of starting the way Srila Prabhupada wrote his books. So we would start with the Bhagavad Gita because there is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which is very appropriate. And then we go from the Bhagavad Gita to Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we understand Leela. Srila Prabhupada basically gave us a key. He wanted us to start with the Bhagavad Gita because the Bhagavad Gita allows you and gives you the vision to see and understand Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are verses in the Bhagavad Gita that you very especially embrace, which point to the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And for us to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to come to the Bhagavad Gita first. And those who live the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes and the activities of those who live the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is seen in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the sequence is we understand from Krishna as to how we should approach him, and that is done through the Bhagavad Gita. We then approach Srimad Bhagavatam, which is non-different from Krishna. And then once we embrace the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, we internalize the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we live Srimad Bhagavatam, we then have the ability to appreciate the mood of the devotees in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is considered postgraduate study, and the reason why it's considered postgraduate study is because the devotees of Chaitanya Charitamrita, who are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the dealings with the Lord, they are all devotees in prema. They are at the advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. They are living the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and as a consequence, it's very difficult for us to understand their behavior. So unless one embraces the Bhagavad Gita, takes the Bhagavad Gita's message and tries to make an attempt to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is to be heard. And once we understand Srimad Bhagavatam, then we have the ability to understand the behavior and the pastimes that are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there's a certain sequence. So we will do something of that sort today. We'll start with Bhagavad Gita, and then we'll proceed to Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we will go on to the actual Leela itself. So, Om Ajnanatimran Dasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So every scripture has its essence described in one verse. They do not use multiple verses. The Shastras, the Acharyas, the Guru Varga, the division of disciplic succession that we are connected to right from Sri Narad Muni, right from Srila Vyasadeva, this particular disciplic succession, they have identified one verse of the Bhagavad Gita as being the Paribhasha Sutra. Paribhasha means essence. So, what is the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita? Oftentimes, we know the Bhagavad Gita from the 18th chapter. Yeah, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita, as given by our acharyas, is 15:15. So 15:15, 15th chapter, 15th verse. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto, mattah smriti jnanam apohanam cha, vedaischa sarverhim eva vedayo, vedanta krid deva veda chaham. So I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, I am the knower of the Vedas. So again, please listen to the translation. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He sits in everyone's heart, and it is frightening to know that Krishna can help us forget him. He says, from me come forgetfulness, and from me come remembrance, and from me come knowledge. So basically, he can sit in our heart, and based on our behavior, with Sangha, with the deities, with everything else that has been given, he can either help us remember more deeply, more profoundly, or he can actually assist in forgetting him. Yeah, this is very important for us to learn, and it is also quite remarkable, because if Krishna decides to help us forget him, then who can actually undo that? Nobody can. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I'm the compiler of the Vedanta, and I'm the knower of the Vedas. Yeah, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. He is basically saying, by all the Vedas, the ultimate aim of the Vedas is for you to develop Sambandha Gyan, which is you need to understand the relationship you have with me. So you need to understand who you are. You need to understand me. You need to understand the very specific mellow of attachment that you and I have, and what is the specific kind of service that you ought to do for me. So this whole concept of by all the Vedas I'm to be known, he is practically saying, if there is any purpose in the Vedas, if there is any purpose in any religious scripture, not just Krishna consciousness, outside of it, it is for us to come in touch with Krishna Sambandha. Krishna Sambandha, Sambandha means to have a knowledge of his relationship. So he's basically saying, through all of this, I'm to be known. Indeed, I'm the compiler of the Vedanta, and I'm the knower of the Vedas. Now, what is quite remarkable, the first Veda was the Yajur Veda, and then from the Yajur Veda, all the Puranas and the stories, Itihasas and the Puranas, they were all extracted by Srila Vyasadeva. And then he redistributed all of these amongst the 4 other Vedas, which means the first Veda, Yajur Veda, got split into 4, but all the Puranas and the Itihasas, they were all captured within the first Veda. That was extracted and redistributed for certain strategic purpose for preaching, because Srila Vyasadeva basically is a source of all preaching in the universe. So he practically extracted it to ensure that it is available. Now, what is being said is that amongst the stories, the Puranas and the Itihasas, there are 1 billion verses, 1 billion, 1 full billion. And this version of the Puranas, Itihasas is available in the demigods realm, in the heavens, in the Swargaloka and beyond. Maharloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Brahmaloka. The greater realms which are higher than the earthly planet is where all the sages assemble. Even today, Bhrigu, headed by Bhrigu Muni, all the sages are assembled in Maharloka, because the day of Brahma is not over. Kali Yuga is not over. The day of Brahma is not ended. As a consequence, they will be in Maharloka until the end of Lord Brahma's day, which is like multiple billion years. So the point is that the entire body of Puranas and Itihasas of almost 1 billion verses is available in the higher planetary systems. The extracted form, or the gist, or an abstract, if you want to call it, or a compressed form that is available here is 400,000 verses. So interesting that what we have is an extraordinarily small percentage of the entire body of knowledge. Now, consider that there are billion verses of the Puranas and Itihasas. Of these billion verses originally, Vyasadeva decided to compile the Vedanta. The Vedanta is basically Veda Anta, which means what is the conclusion of the Vedas. So before he started compiling the Vedanta, he internalized the message of all of these billion verses. And out of those billion verses, the inspiration from Sri Narad Muni into his heart became manifest as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the crest jewel of a billion verses of other Puranas because it sits right on top. And it is the crest jewel because it's Purana Amalam. It is basically unsullied by objectives of Karma Kanda, which is to attain results of advancement and material enjoyment within the sphere of life. It is unsullied, uncontaminated by a desire of wanting to basically leave the suffering of the world. It is unsullied by these contaminations. So the Srimad Bhagavatam was already conceived within the heart of Srila Vyasadeva. And this Srimad Bhagavatam, which sits on top of the billion verses, because it is the king of all of these particular Puranas, Itihasas, and Vedas, this Srimad Bhagavatam was already conceived of in the heart. He had not revealed it outside in terms of dictating it, putting it in form of scripture. It was already realized within his heart. And after realizing Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras are the conclusion of the Vedas. So the point being that between the Bhagavad Gita, which says, Krishna says, I am to be known, to the Bhagavatam, where he is fully known, there were a billion verses. And these billion verses and the conclusion of the Vedas, the Vedanta, all of these were covered as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Vedanta. And why? Because Srila Vyasadeva had already conceived of the Srimad Bhagavatam in his heart while he wrote the conclusions of the Vedanta. In other words, the most important message of the Vedas was written after Srila Vyasadeva had realized the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is very important for us to understand that what we have been given as the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is practically bridging a billion verses in between and the Vedanta and all the cumbersome activity of trying to digest within a very short lifetime all of this has been bridged. It has all been bridged over, and now we have Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered the supreme achievement of Srila Vyasadeva, which is his, what you would call as the last offering, which is, which excited him because he was despondent because he had not done that. Now that offering is what basically describes an extension of this verse. Yeah, this verse, he says, Krishna says basically that he is to be known through all the Vedas. He is the compiler of the Vedanta because he is Srila Vyasadeva. It is said that no one could have written the Srimad Bhagavatam. No one could have possibly, written the Srimad Bhagavatam. No one could have possibly conceived of Srimad Bhagavatam other than Narayana himself. Unless it was Narayana, which is Krishna himself, unless it was an incarnation of Narayana, no one could have had the realizations to put together what was put together. So it's quite important for us to realize that the Bhagavatam itself is the conclusion, and it's been written by Sriman Narayana. He's Vyasa himself. And as a consequence, he's saying here very clearly that through all the Vedas, I'm to be known, and I'm the compiler of the Vedanta. So what we have been given is an extraordinary message. Now, why is all of this so relevant to the discussion today, which is the pastimes of Giriraj? What is so relevant about the Govardhana pastimes that we have to understand this, and we have to understand the Paribhasha Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now let's just read the Paribhasha Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam as well. We wanted to approach from the Bhagavad Gita and say that there is a message in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Paribhasha Sutra, which tallies with the most important verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. We need to understand this connection. So what is the Paribhasha Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam described in one verse, according to our acharyas? It is 1.3.28, first canto, third chapter, 28th verse. Ete chamsha kala pumshaha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, Indraari Vyakulam Lokam, Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there's a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. This is the Paribhasa Sutra. So there he says, I am to be known through all the Vedas. I am the conclusion of the Vedas. Here, the Paribhasa Sutra of the Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly says that he is the original personality. It is from him that everything else is manifested. So this is the Paribhasa Sutra of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, there are 4 important verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is called the Chatushloki. We want to go there before we go on to a description of the Leela itself. The Chatushloki, I'm just getting to the verse in one moment, is part of the 2nd canto, 9th chapter, and the verses 32, verses 33, and this verse 33 is Aham eva sam evagre nanyadyat sad asat param paschadaham yad etascha yo vasishyeta so asmi aham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. This is the first verse. What existed before, what is existing now, and what is going to exist in the future. It is all me. This is Lord Narayan speaking to Lord Brahma. This was the first verse of the Chatushloki. Now let's listen to the second verse. The second verse is verse 34. Rite ritam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyat atmano mayam yatha basho yatha tamaha. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality, know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So there is no connection if you engage in activity which you can't really ascribe to me. So there really isn't any connection. He's practically throwing out all activities and saying, if you can't connect to me and if you can't really figure out what you're doing in this world, yeah, what is it which is going to allow us to do activities in the name of Lord Narayan? What is going to allow us to do activities in the name of Krishna is to know who we are in relationship to Krishna. It is natural for a living being to do activities according to family circumstances. It is natural for parents to serve the children to serve the parents, vice versa, brother to serve sisters, friends to serve friends. It's natural because the relationship is known. Yeah. So the relationship is already known, and because the relationship is already known, it is easy to engage in dharma. If you want to engage in activity, you should know what the relationship is. If you want to be effective in your job, you should know what the role demands. It's just not the title. You should also know what is expected of us, which is how we all excel. If you're in a professional environment, you need to know what you're expected to do, which means you need to know who you are in the context of the organization. You need to know who you are in the context of co-workers. You need to know who you are in the context of the larger industry, so on and so forth. If you're not aware of your sambandha, then you can't perform duty, because duty comes from sambandha. One who does not know that he is a father can't perform the role of a father effectively. So first identity, then dharma, duty. So the second verse is saying, unless you establish an identity with me, then you wouldn't be able to do anything in this world of value, because everything is going to be destroyed. So this is the second important verse. This is foundational for all pastimes of the Lord. So that's why I'm bringing this up. It's foundational. Not just Giriraj pastime, everything. Text 35. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshcha vacheshanu pravistani apravistani tata teshu nateshva aham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created. At the same time, I'm outside of everything. Here, he is talking about how one can be connected to him and yet not experience the destruction that is experienced in this world. just as much as the super soul sits in the body of a pig, of a hog, which is rolling around in dirt and is not affected by the dirt and the bodily covering. In a similar fashion, one who is connected to the Lord has the capacity to also be free of disturbances from what they are covered by. So if we are in this body, there are going to be challenges. But internally, if we are qualitatively the same as the Lord, then we wouldn't be disturbed just as much as he wouldn't be disturbed. This is the third of the Chatushlokis. The last one is the conclusion. Etavadeva jigyasam tattva jigyasu natmanah anvaya vyatirekabhyam yat syat sarvatra sarvada. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this in all circumstances, in all space and time, both directly and indirectly. Now, what does this mean? Here, this verse acknowledges the fact that as jivas, we are pleasure seekers by nature. We are constantly seeking pleasure in different activities. We are pleasure seekers. It is an acknowledgement. Now, what is pleasure and what is happiness? What is the point of seeking happiness that is temporary? The happiness part has to have an eternal component. And for you to have eternal components in happiness, you need to be connected to those who are eternal. Otherwise, where is the point of happiness? Because happiness is fleeting and it should not be interrupted. If it is interrupted or if it is minuscule, it goes away after it comes, then that is not considered to be a proper standard. Because we are pleasure seekers by nature, one of the qualities of happiness that we should seek has to have the ingredient of eternality. How can you have the ingredient of eternality when you're dealing with temporary phenomena? A job exists, it goes away. Relationships exist, it disappears. The body exists, it disappears. So how do you cultivate happiness with very temporary phenomena? We cannot. So there has to be a bridge made for the search of happiness with something which is eternal, which is the reason why it's being mentioned here, that if you want to search for happiness, you better ensure that there is the ingredient of eternity, which is Sat. Sat has to be there. Sat means truth, because truth is not relative, it's absolute. It cannot change every day. So as a consequence, Sat, eternity, has to be a part of happiness, the quest of happiness. What else is required for happiness? Can one who is completely lost their mental faculties and they do not know their surroundings, they do not know who they are, they do not know the object of their love, can they experience happiness? The answer is no. You cannot. You need to have knowledge of who you are. You need to have knowledge of the beloved, and then activities can come. Now, Ananda, which is the last part, because we're seeking Ananda, yeah, for Ananda to be full and to be completely blissful, it has to have the ingredients of Sat, eternity. It has to have the ingredient of Chit, which is knowledge. One needs to know who they are. They need to know the object of love. Only then would there be complete, all sounded, very good happiness. So Ananda, Sat Chit Ananda, that's being explained of in this particular verse. So they're saying if you're searching after Sat Chit Ananda, which is you're a pleasure seeker, you're seeking happiness, you better find ingredients which are eternal. You better find an ingredient where there's complete knowledge, there isn't ignorance, and then that Ananda that you're seeking, the happiness that you seek, would be wholesome, it would be complete in all respects. With everything else you do, where you can identify that there's a temporary nature of existence, either because there are economic changes, or because there are bodily changes, or because there are temporary acceptance and rejection, because there's duality. Who is a friend in this particular year becomes an enemy the next. This is duality, this duality. All of these dualities are a part of the temporary realm. So one can't really be spending too much time trying to endeavor towards something which is going to disappear in just a matter of time. So this is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, take all of this in the context of what Krishna wanted to convey, because we went from understanding what Krishna was saying in the Bhagavad Gita. He said that I am the origin of the Vedas, I am the compiler, I am to be known, there's really nothing else to be known other than me. And then we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is a natural commentary, which is also the crest jewel, or we would say the conclusion and the crest jewel and the supermost condensed version of 1 billion verses of the Puranas. In the Bhagavatam, you have 4 verses out of 18,000 verses. That's what we read just for a few minutes now. In these 4 verses, we got to understand that one needs to have Krishna Sambandha. One needs to first connect to Narayana. And if you do not connect to Narayana, Krishna and Narayana are the same. Narayana and Krishna are the same. Now, if you do not connect to Krishna, then whatever you engage in is temporary and it basically belongs to illusory nature. So if you want to act in this world and you want to know that your action in this world is eternally connected and there's a contribution to eternal life, then that particular knowledge can only come if we live as Krishna's servants. The more and more and more one lives as Krishna's servants, they have the capacity for them to be able to be completely connected to the activity they do. So internally, Mother Yashoda doesn't have to worry about Krishna consciousness. She doesn't have to worry about Krishna consciousness. The Gopas and the Gopis of Vrindavan, they do not need to worry about Krishna consciousness because when they are acting, their sambandha is known, the relationship is known, the action, which is called abhideya, is also completely immersed with the knowledge of who they are in relationship to Krishna. So there is sambandha, there's abhideya, which is the objective. Yeah. The point we are trying to make here is that for one to act, one needs to know who they are. And for that to be eternal is the objective. Now, in this context, we want to understand the pastimes of Krishna in Vraja. Govardhan is a very special place. We all know that as devotees, many of us have come for parikrama. Many of us have participated in parikrama, and I'm sure all of us have done Govardhan parikrama, and you've also gone through Vrajamandal. Vrajamandal begins as you enter Gurgaon. There's a place called Sana. Then you, as you enter into Gurgaon, a little further down towards Vrindavan, Vrajamandal begins there, and then you pass through different places, and then you finally come to Vrindavan. Now, even in Vrindavan, after Vrindavan, further from Vrindavan is Govardhan. Govardhan is considered to be the what we would call the most worshipable and the favorite spot of Krishna in all of Vrajamandal. It is the most confidential servant. If there is a spot in Vraja which is considered to be most confidential, most auspicious, one of the, in the spiritual sky, you can imagine, you're already talking about the spiritual sky. Vrajamandal is non-different from the spiritual sky. It is non-different. Yes, you drive through cars and you come here through your planes, and we all do that. But in reality, the material layer that covers Vraja is very thin. You can look at Vraja from the perspective of the material layer, where people engage in lives just as much as they would in the other cities of India, or you look at it from a spiritual layer. So when we come here, we are enthralled because we are getting a very special entrance into Vraja. Yeah, the material layer is very thin, so we get to experience spiritual phenomena when we visit for parikrama. But even in this particular place, which is the spiritual sky, because when Krishna descends, he descends with his spiritual realm. And here, the pastimes are eternal. We are actually in the spiritual sky, and the pastimes are eternal. The pastimes of the Lord and his most beloved servant are visible to those whose hearts are clean and who have been blessed with Sambandha Gyan. They're already aware. By the mercy of Harinam, they're already aware of who they are in relationship with Krishna. They can see the pastimes as they pass through the streets of Vrindavan. Amongst these pastimes and amongst the various spots of the spiritual sky, we are talking about the spiritual sky. This is the crest of the Vaikuntha planets. This is the topmost situation in the spiritual sky. In that particular circumstance, as you walk towards the Govardhan Parvat and Sri Radhakund, that is the topmost of all places. Not Nandagaon, not any other place. Krishna says, the king of hills is Govardhan. It's non-different from he is. It is completely non-different from he is. Why is this so? Because very important for us to understand is that the pastimes in Govardhan are practically capturing all the rasas that Krishna wants to display and engage with his devotees. All the rasas are contained in Govardhan. So there is Dasya ras, there is even Shantaras, where there's a certain neutrality. Yeah, the plants and the creepers, the Kalpavriksha trees that can grant any boon. Yeah, these are all considered to be in a certain neutral position until Krishna wants to engage it is considered to be neutral. You see, unless he decides to go and sit under a tree, then the tree can't serve him. So it's not very dynamic. Dasya Bhakti, on the other hand, is very dynamic. So our acharyas want to be very dynamic with their interaction with Krishna. So they start with Dasya. So you have the engagement of Krishna's servants in Govardhan. You have the engagement of Krishna with the Sakas in Govardhan, the cowherd boys. Yeah, there are so many different classes of cowherd boys. And these different classes of cowherd boys, they have their leaders. Yeah. And then they have their sub-leaders, etc. And then there is the third aspect, which is Vatsalya. This is the mood of interaction with Krishna as Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba, how they would interact with him. And then there is Madhurya Ras, which is the interaction of Krishna with Srimati Radharani and her servants, which is practically the highest expression of love for Krishna. That is also the highest expression of bhakti for Krishna, is found in the Madhurya Ras. Now, all of these pastimes are contained within the realm of Govardhan. So you have Sri Radha Kund, you have Sham Kund, you have Manas Ganga, you have so many different pastimes that have already occurred, that have given great relish and ecstasy to our acharyas. Plus, you have the pastimes of the cowherd boys in Govind Kund. Yeah. If you're gone to Govind Kund, you could see that even today there are branches coming from a very big tree. The cowherd boys climb upon the tree, they go to the branch, and from the branch they fall into the water. And you can actually visualize that Krishna and his cowherd boys should have done that as well, because it looked very much apt for people, young children, to do. Climb up the tree and then fall from a branch, completely not worried about risk, height, nothing. Just fall into the water and have a swim. So there's Govind Kund, and then all of these places are all surrounded. It goes all the way. So the point being that amongst all the servants of Krishna, Govardhan is considered to be most special, because all the rasas and the relationships are captured in the area of Govardhan Leela. Yeah, it is all captured in that particular spot. And these are all, I would say, superlative pastimes. There's nothing more superior to Sri Radha Kund than you have it in Govardhan, actually. Yeah, Sri Govardhan basically bends down and pays obeisances to Sri Radha Kund and Shyam Kund. Yeah, it's almost as if it's like a garland. Shastras describe Radha Kund and Shyam Kund as a garland over Sri Govardhan. Yeah. So in the Govardhan pastimes, what is it which Krishna wanted to convey? First and foremost principle, we need to understand it from the perspective of what you've already read. Srila Haridas Thakur was having a conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Harinam Chintamani. In that conversation, Lord Chaitanya was inspiring answers in the heart of Haridas Thakur. And then Haridas Thakur was speaking out answers with great surrender. And in that particular mood, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking Haridas Thakur, define a sadhu. Who is a sadhu? Who in your mind is a sadhu? Srila Haridas Thakur pays obeisances, chants glorification of Lord Chaitanya and his devotees, and then he starts giving a description of the qualities and why and what is a sadhu. A very simple gist of that statement is, a sadhu is one who is completely dependent on Harinam. This is the definition of a sadhu by Haridas Thakur. He is the Namacharya. He is the foremost authority who can define any particular statement in our Sangha. Lord Chaitanya is prompting answers. Lord Chaitanya was very pleased when he heard this answer, that the sadhu is one who is completely dependent on Harinam. Yeah. So the first quality of a sadhu is complete dependence on Krishna's names. Krishna's names, Nama, Naminoho, Abhinnatvam. There is no difference between him and his name. And as a consequence, any dependence of the name that is being spoken of is practically the same as being dependent on Krishna himself. This is the primary quality of a sadhu. This is the first statement that we have to understand. Yeah. There is a need for us to develop this attitude of complete surrender and dependence on Harinam. And that is basically the primary quality. Now, why is this complete dependence spoken of? Yeah. First, there has to be proof. What if I depend on you and you let me down? It's a natural query, isn't it? There's a certain vulnerability when we say we want to depend on anyone. There's a certain vulnerability. First, we need to have proof that what is it what will happen if I surrender to you, if I completely depend on you, will you let me down? So in the 4 shlokas that we read and the Bhagavad Gita, the statements made there is that everything is connected to me. From me come remembrance, forgetfulness, knowledge. I am to be known through the Vedas and the Vedantas. Then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, I'm the beginning, I'm the middle, I'm the end. All activities that are connected to me are eternal, others are illusory. He says that just as much as I exist as a super soul, you will also exist as a super soul. And he says all of this is really important for you to know in the relationship that you have with me. Now, what does it mean there? What it means is very simple. As we read further through the Srimad Bhagavatam, we will understand through the definitions of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are different conclusions. Throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, a few facts would be hammered down so that we understand it. One of the very important facts is that everything is controlled by Krishna. So there's a cause and there's an effect. Both the cause and the effect are known. So the cause is Krishna, there is an effect. So it is very simply seen in different scriptures. You can see it in the Narasimha Tapani Upanishad. In the Narasimha Tapani Upanishad, the 32 syllable Ugram Veeram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Sarvatomukam Narasimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityu Mrityu Namamiham. This mantra has 32 syllables, and the 32 syllables are derived from and are connected to 32 very important personalities who manage the material universe. Yeah. So there is a syllable associated with the Gunavataras, Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Maheshwara, through the Shaktis, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Parvati, then to the main demigods who manage the universe. They are all a part of the 32 syllable Mahamantra of Lord Narasimhadev. Similarly, the Narayana Upanishad talks about how Lord Narayana is the origin of everybody else. So all of these statements are pointing to the fact that even our opening and closing of an eyelid, even our ability to exist, to eat, to basically sleep, to perform basic bodily functions, it is all being controlled by Krishna's servants. He controls them. And as a consequence, we in turn are particularly controlled by the mercy of the Lord. So if there is such great level of control according to scriptures in terms of all the demigods, what they do to living entities, how they manage the universe, all of these are being supported by those 4 verses of the Bhagavatam. So what do the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam say? The first 4 verses of the Bhagavatam, the Chatushloki, are emphasizing and encouraging complete dependence on Krishna, because that is the nature of a sadhu. The 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam are saying, I am in the middle, I'm in the beginning, I'm in the end. Yeah. I practically manage the universe. I'm everything. You see? So practically what is being said there is that it is being conveyed to us is to depend on him. This particular message of dependence is being conveyed. And now you can relate to why it's important, because Srila Haridas Thakur says the same thing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says a sadhu, a Vaishnava, a practitioner, a chanter of the holy names is one who is completely dependent on Harinam. This particular definition is being supported in the Bhagavatam's main verses and in the Bhagavad Gita's main verse. Yeah, this context has to be understood as well. Now, we have to understand the Govardhan pastimes through these verses as well. We want to understand the fact that during Govardhan Leela, this was a very young boy. Which father would listen to a 7-8-year-old? Why would they listen to him? Regardless, because in Vraja, nobody believes Krishna is God. As far as Mother Yashoda is concerned, there is their little boy. Nanda Baba, it is their little son. Yeah, the Vrajavasis do not consider him as God. They have love which is completely uncontaminated by Krishna's opulence. They do not care. They don't really care for any opulence. They basically want the Lord in his most basic loving form. And the most loving interactions happen in the area of Govardhan, in Vraja, which is the reason why Vrindavan and Vraja Bhakti is considered to be supreme, is because in this particular feature of Bhakti, he is not accepted as God. He is accepted as he is, the cowherd boy. Yeah. He is accepted as he is. There's a very confidential aspect. When Krishna comes with 2 arms, very difficult to understand him. If he comes with 10 arms, it's easy to understand he's God. Everybody will know Nrsimhadev is God because he's there with weapons for, so many multifaceted arms and ferocious nature. Everybody knows that I can surrender to him, you know, but they will not surrender to a little boy, you see. So the Vrajvasis were really not motivated by the scholarship of Krishna. It was not the scholarship of Krishna or the very deft arguments that got into the heart of Nanda Maharaj and the Vrajavasis. They simply wanted to do what he wanted them to do. It's as simple as that. Yeah. For the Vrajavasis, there was no question of intellectually accepting the arguments of Krishna because he makes intellectual arguments. But it is not because of the intellectual arguments that the Vrajavasis accept his particular statement of stopping to worship Indra. Krishna says and argues that why should you worship Indra? Who you are today is because of your karma. Who you are today is because of your karma. And one who can manage his karma well can manage his future. So why do you need the demigod? Why are you worshipping him? So now Krishna is introducing logical arguments. So it was not because of the logical arguments, because in their head, in their phase, in that particular emotion and the connection they have with the Lord, there is no place of emotion. It is all hot. It's 100% love. It's prema. There's their beloved who is wanting something to be worshipped instead of something else. They do not mind going through all kinds of challenges. They do not mind going through all kinds of challenges by insulting a demigod just to please their beloved. This is what Srila Haridas Thakur conveyed to Lord Chaitanya. He said, the definition of a sadhu is complete dependence on Harinam. This is the definition of dependence on Harinam. The Vrajvasis, they were not led by Krishna's logic. Imagine the conclusion. Imagine this. Who would be led by a small child who is arguing that you shouldn't do puja this way and you should do puja that way, regardless of what he is? Nanda Baba and Yashoda Maiya, they do not believe in Krishna's scholarship. No, they accept it because of love. They love him so much that they do not mind. Even the rational mind would say that Indra could attack them. They don't care. They love him so much. So that is the actual nature of a Brajavasi. So what happened during Govardhana Leela? They said, okay, you are saying so. All of this seems wonderful. It's all very conclusive that, there is no need for us to worship Indra. Instead, we will worship Govardhan Parvat. Now, Krishna, by his potency, he manifested, himself as Govardhan, and he accepted all the offerings that were made to him to give them a greater level of faith. Yeah. But in reality, the interaction of the Vrajavasis with Krishna is through the office of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. She basically makes even Krishna forget he is God. What to say of them remembering he is God? She makes Krishna forget he is God. Yeah. Mother Yashoda chases him. We read about it in the Damodar pastimes. She ties him up. Yeah. Through in a pestle. She ties him up. He forgets he is God. They forget he is God, because that is how this rasa, this particular beautiful, sweet relationship, which is called Madhurya, the sweetness covering Braja. There is no opulence. The opulence of worship is seen in Dwaraka. It is said that Sri Uddhava, Krishna's cousin, when he comes from Dwaraka to Braja, it was during sunset. And he comes in a great big chariot. And the chariot is extraordinarily opulent because he's a very important member of the royal family of Dwaraka. But then at the same time, during sunset, all the cows of Braja, they were returning home. And the hooves of the cows were creating a dust storm, hundreds and thousands of cows. This dust storm covers the chariot of Dwaraka. The Acharya is right that the sweetness of Braja, which is the dust of Braja, which has come from the hooves of the cows, covers the chariot of Dwaraka. So the Aishwarya of Dwaraka is covered over by the sweetness of Braja. So the sweetness of the Lord, by his internal potency, the connection that he has, where he basically interacts with the Brajavasis, covers over their ability to look upon him as God. They just want to follow him. What does he do? When there's a great storm, there's a little bit of a side note in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the commentary of our acharyas. They say that he saw this extraordinary storm, and there were columns of rains which were as hefty or as fat as a pillar. They were pouring upon Braja because these were deluge rains. These were rains that come when the world, the creation has to be washed away, and then you have to begin again. That was what happened. So Krishna practically, he was standing on his courtyard and he was looking at the rain coming. It is said that he dashed all the way from his courtyard to Govardhan Parvat. When he dashed all the way, when he ran all the way to Govardhan Parvat, it is said there's a subpotency of Yogamaya who practically ensured that no rain will drench his turban, which was so beautifully arranged by Mother Yashoda. So not a drop of rain fell on his beautiful turban. He ran towards Govardhan Parvat and he lifted Govardhan Parvat with his pinky. Yeah, this is a small boy lifting an extraordinarily large mountain with his pinky. Yeah, by his mercy, the pinky, he basically held it as if it's an umbrella. And the acharyas say, they compare it to a little boy picking up a mushroom. He just picked up a mushroom. He picked up the Govardhan Parvat and then he held it up like a little boy picking up a mushroom, a wild mushroom that's growing in the forest. And as he held it up, no one hesitated coming under this huge mountain while he was holding it up. Will we go into under a mountain which is being held by a little boy? We wouldn't. They all rushed under the mountain. They all rushed under the mountain. And while they all rushed under the mountain, there was no rationality. There was nothing at all there. If you're rational, you wouldn't go under a mountain held by a little boy, which is, he's holding it with the left hand pinky. You wouldn't go under a mountain. So there was no rationality. It was love. There he is holding a mountain. We want to be with him. What did Krishna do in the pastimes? He used Indra to practically wash away the karmic reactions of all the Vrajavasis who had been worshipping demigods before for generations, by washing away everything they had and re-establishing a new system. How do you wash karma? You wash karma voluntarily through chanting of Harinam. You wash karma involuntarily by destroying what was created. That's the reason why the world gets destroyed ever so often when the mode of ignorance becomes very high and very difficult. The Lord's servant practically destroy the creation and re-begin creation again. So that's how karma is destroyed. It has to be displaced. Yeah. So what did Krishna do? He used Indra as an instrument. He infuriated him, covered him over with his potency where he couldn't see what was going on. He made him very, very angry. He poured down rains which washed away the entire karmic reactions of the Vrajavasis as all of them rushed under Govardhan Leela during the Govardhan Leela under the mountain to take shelter of the Lord, where their sambandha was very straight. So they fulfilled many, many aspects of Shastras. First, they fulfilled the most important conclusion given by Harinam Chintamani, the most important conclusion given by Haridas Thakur. What did he say? That a real sadhu is one who is dependent on Harinam. Now, this is called dependence. So Krishna practically gave them love first. Everybody loved him there. Before the Govardhan Leela, there was intense exchanges of love. Everybody loved him. But because they loved him, it was so easy for them to surrender to his wishes. They are able to serve him because there was already love. And without love, there cannot be surrender. There cannot be surrender. Surrender, favorable surrender for service cannot happen without love. So first there has to be love. And once there's love, then one surrenders to the beloved. They're ready to make themselves fully available. They're ready to lose anything. They're ready to give anything up because the beloved has known and they can surrender. Now service begins. Yeah. So they basically had a lot of love. And when Krishna made this request that don't worship the demigods, worship me, they accepted it not because he was very good in Shastric conclusions, because Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Maya, they never considered their son a great scholar. They in fact complained to Uddhava when he comes, my son steals butter. He is hungry all the time. How do you call him a scholar? He is a thief. He is a thief and he is hungry. Which sadhu, which particular knowledgeable pandit would be hungry all the time? He is hungry all the time. He is stealing all the time. And then you call him, Narayana, and you are calling him what do you call it? A particularly scholarly sadhu where he is completely filled with knowledge. Nanda Baba, Yashoda Maya, they reject all these arguments. They love that thief. They really love that thief. They love this particular little boy who is a thief, who is practically hungry, who's forcing them to serve him in so many different ways. He engages the whole of Braja. Their heart goes to that particular butter thief. They don't care about his scholarly abilities. So it was not the scholarly ability of Krishna which convinced the Brajavasis to stop the worship of Indra. It was their innate capability, because they are Brajavasis, they are the entourage of Krishna. They're intrinsically capable of depending on him. They displayed the dependence. And what Krishna did was he protected them to do his part. They all wondered that this must be some kind of a blessing. Yeah. Our little boy can't have these kind of powers. It must be some kind of a mystic blessing. Yeah. So they forget all the lore which Garga Muni and others have told them about their little boy. They forget everything. For them, this boy is my son, friend, master, beloved. Depending on which rasa they are in, that is all they see. Yeah. So they don't really have nothing to do with Krishna being Lord Narayan, which is full of Aishwarya and opulence, being able to protect them. They just ran because complete dependence is a part of loving service. So first there was love. They accepted whatever he said, not because he argued efficiently. They accepted whatever he said and they knew the consequences. And even if they knew the consequences, they didn't care. So this is love. And then there is surrender, which is seen during the pastime of Giriraj, where they all rush under the mountain. And Krishna washes away all their old karma by having Indra destroy all their belongings, the houses, whatever they were, the cows and the other more animate aspects, they all come under Govardhana. So this protection was given, and the rains stop, and then everybody goes back to accepting Giriraj and basically accepting Krishna as the summum bonum. But they don't accept him because of his extraordinary pastimes. There is an intrinsic love which has already been established, without which they wouldn't be able to surrender. Without loving and without surrender, one cannot serve. There is no service. Service is very difficult if there isn't love and there isn't surrender. Service is very difficult. So the whole aspect of sadhana bhakti that we are engaging in is for us to understand that once we are into this particular sadhana bhakti, ultimately we want to develop love of God. This love of God will allow us to make ourselves fully available, which is what surrender is. By making ourselves fully available, we then would be able to render efficient service, which is the objective of all of us. So this is the whole idea of sadhana bhakti. When we try and center him, now in Govardhan Leela, he is the center. He is the center of all attention. This is basically Vraja Leela. This is the Govardhan Leela. This is the life of Vrajvasis, where they are not dependent on anything. They know that they are dependent on him. And they are not dependent on him because he is strong. He is God. They are dependent on him because they want to depend on him. He is their beloved. There really isn't anything else in their hearts. They want to depend on him. He is their beloved. This is the mood of Raja, which is being displayed fully in the pastimes of Raja in Govardhan Leela. And Govardhan Leela is considered to be one of the most, I would say, it is actually the crest jewel of all Leelas, because there are so many other sub pastimes of the divine couple that have occurred in the Govardhan area. But the whole concept of what is the Paribhasha Sutra, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, that I am to be known. Yeah. So he is basically saying, I am the origin. I control all the devas. Why are you worshipping Indra? I'm supposed to be worshipped. I'm supposed to be fed. So this whole worship of Govardhan is not extraordinarily arranged through Vedic concepts. What do we do in Govardhan Puja? We build an annakut where Krishna basically eats. We want to feed him, and he wants to eat. Govardhan Lal wants to eat. He wants to eat. That's what we are trying to do with Govardhan Puja. This is our objective with Govardhan Puja. This is not Vedic. In other words, there isn't a huge amount of steps and so on and so forth. He wants to eat. This is an exchange of love. He's already telling the Vrijvasis, I want this kind of stuff to be made and I want that to be made. There are verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures where he's giving a menu of what he wants to eat. And then he eats. And then he is worshipped as a son of Raja, as a beloved. And then they stop all of these activities. He has completely washed all the karma away. And then they surrender to him. This is just wonderful. All the ingredients that we need for devotional service are seen in this one single pastime. All the ingredients. You see dependence of a sadhu on Harinam. Dependence on Harinam is the same as dependence on Krishna. You see surrender. You see how, even if there is destruction in one's life, if they have Krishna like a Brajvasi, then they have achieved everything, because the arrangements that get made by Krishna himself, they will never disturb us. Our karma can disturb us. So if we make a plan and we make an arrangement for life, it can disturb our bhakti. But if Krishna arranges everything, nothing would be disturbed. Yeah? Nothing would be disturbed. So he is arranging everything. And then what else do we see? We also see that he is arranging, he is protecting, we are seeing dependence, we are seeing love. And then we are also seeing the fact that all the karma is being washed away, and then they are able to interact with him. Yeah. In addition to the fact that there are such superlative pastimes. So when we come to Govardhan, we should meditate on the Leela and understand that that particular area of Raja, every area of Raja, but more specifically the area of Raja surrounding Govardhan, is extraordinarily, extraordinarily powerful. And as a consequence, it helps one come to the conclusion of dependence on Krishna. If we meditate on the Leela in a careful way, which is what our acharyas do. And it is basically what I would call as the dream, as seen in the acharyas, the different poems written by Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Thakur, and then also we also see written by Raghunath Das Goswami. All of these are examples of desiring to be in Vrindavan, especially in Govardhan. Yeah, there are so many wonderful pastimes. So I think I'll stop here, because I think we're just about completed 1 hour, and then I can possibly take a few questions, and then yeah, we'll go on with the program.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was wonderful. So much knowledge. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank
And
you.
I think we have a question from Rimpi Mataji.
Mhm.
She says, what does surrender mean? Does this mean to try to leave the duties that has been assigned to us by Krishna, such as our normal duties towards our family? Or does it mean that continue to fulfill your duties at the name of Krishna and never forget him? And she continues to say, how is it possible to leave everything that you are doing when you know that you have still got basically
So much to do.
responsibility? Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, in reality, we don't need to leave anything. In reality, we do not need to leave anything, neither should we abandon our duties. The idea is to have an understanding of what is the goal and to make daily progress. When we wake up in the morning, we should understand that if this is the last day on this planet, what is the most important way for me to be able to spend time? I should basically reprioritize my day and ensure that I contribute to my Krishna consciousness. What is the most effective way of contribution to Krishna consciousness? First and foremost, you need to come in touch with those who are already Krishna conscious, because they can pass on their faith into our hearts. Next, we always need to be able to come in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, and we should be able to chant Harinam, and then have aspirations of wanting to serve Vrindavan, Mayapur Dham, and worship the deity. So the point being that as we continue our daily life, as we see it, as we are today, we center the activities of Krishna consciousness, and as we make progress on a day-to-day basis, we would also, I would say, have the opportunity to give more and more as years come by. So no adjustment to be made except wanting to desire a greater level of participation in Krishna consciousness. No adjustment to be made. If you want to start Krishna consciousness, start with honoring prasadam and chanting. This is the conclusion of our acharyas. Seva unmukehi jihvadau. If you have nothing more to do, if you can't do anything else, find time to chant how much ever you can and honor Krishna Prasadam. This is where you take the first baby steps towards Krishna consciousness. And then we start strategizing and desiring to do more and more and more. Krishna will take care of the rest. So there's no need for us to give up everything. Surrender means wanting to basically give our time and our life to Krishna consciousness, starting internally first. External changes will happen naturally. Internally, start desiring that. How do you desire it? You taste it fully first. Then you desire it more and more and more. Then externally, there would be some changes that you can make to have more and more of this. You see, as I spoke earlier in the beginning of the class, this is not what I would call a process which is basically an austerity. This is a path to happiness, which is all we are talking about. So you just increase the quantum of happiness. Just increase the quantum of happiness as we go along, by increasing the activity.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay. We're just waiting for more questions to come in. Maybe I can ask, Prabhuji. So, did the Brajvasis did they understand that Krishna had contradictory qualities? I mean, his parents and the gopis, because like Krishna said that he was Ram in his previous life, and the gopis just laughed at him. But did they in the deep down, did they know that he had contradictory qualities?
Contradictory qualities, as in what
Because he
contradicting what?
uh, not contradictory qualities in him, because like Krishna is considered a brahmachari, or like
Well, which
many
is
other.
the see? Sorry to cut you off. Sorry. So, which is it's a good point. You see, the concept of spirituality is called diunital. Diunital in philosophy would mean that two contradictions can coexist harmoniously. In the material world, one cannot be called old and young at the same time. You can't do that. In the spiritual sky, Krishna can be called Purana Purusha. He can also be called Navayavana. Yeah. So these contradictory qualities can coexist in complete harmony in the spiritual sky, and that is the nature of spiritual life. So there really isn't any contradiction there. However, coming to your the question that you had, Prabhu, is that when the concept of knowing Krishna as God, it basically does not interest the gopis or the Vrajvasis. They have no interest. They really don't, because it interferes with their ability to love him. That's why when Mahaprabhu is giving us prema, he's giving us Krishna prema of Vraja. This confidential aspect of relationship is not even available to the Dwarakavasis. It is not available in Ayodhya. It is certainly not available in Vaikuntha, where Lord Narayan exhibits his opulence. So what's being given to us is so special that nobody else has this. Nobody else has it. So that's the reason why there has to be great. That's the reason why there has to be great humility in approaching Krishna consciousness, because what we have received is so special that we don't even have any qualification to receive it. But the point I want to just make is that Brajvasis just don't want to know. They don't want to know. Their whole relationship is completely sweetly covered over. The Yogamaya potency of Krishna, which is the internal potency, she covers over their ability to understand him as God. She also covers over his ability to understand himself as God. Yeah. So he allows a cowherd boy to climb on his back. A cowherd boy can put his foot out and say, Krishna, massage my foot. Yeah, Krishna's foot is being massaged. Krishna massages the cowherd boy's foot. The cowherd boy will bite something and say, this is so tasty. Here, taste this. And he will push it into Krishna's mouth, and Krishna would relish and eat what's been eaten by someone else, which normally wouldn't be given to, the principle of God. So the point being, the idea of Krishna being God ruins everything for the Brajavasis. So they are very mercifully spared this particular experience. And instead, what they experience is Shuddha Bhakti. This is why it's called Shuddha Bhakti, completely pure, where there is no contamination of any kind of opulence, Aishwarya. It's complete pure love. They want nothing from him. They don't really care. They really don't have anything. They just want him. That's it. Basically, they have no other aspiration other than wanting to give him love and receive love from him, which is why their love is considered to be the topmost. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. But we get some sects who thinks that when God comes to the material world, that he is controlled by, I mean, maybe not Yogamaya, but Mahamaya as such. So that sort of, if you, if we say that Yoga Maya helps Krishna forget that he's God. That sort of proves them right in a way. They say now that that we are all God, and because we have come to the material world, that we have forgotten that we are God. That kind of concept, some
Yes.
organizations have in their head that we
Yes,
all
those organizations should try lifting Govardhan Parvat.
yeah,
Yeah, let them try that first, and then we could try and talk to them about Siddhanta.
absolutely, absolutely. Thanks. Wonderful answer. Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, we have some questions.
I
I'm not
can
sure.
read it, Prabha. I can read it here as well because I've opened up chat. So let me just look into it and I'll answer as well. One moment here. Can you please provide more details when you talked about Brajavasis regarding karma? From my understanding, the Brajavasis loved Krishna unconditionally, and doesn't Krishna care of his devotees? The karma aspect is as follows: when you engage in this world and you engage in any kind of activity with any kind of misconception of not being connected to the eternality, which we spoke of earlier on from Srimad Bhagavatam, karma is generated. Now, Krishna basically did not want them to engage in karma kanda, which is the reason why he completely stopped karma kanda, made them depend on him, and also destroyed what was created through karma kanda in their minds. So what was going to be provided after that was the mercy of Govardhan. So he basically wanted to give the Brajavasis this very special love, which is what it is. Unconditional love is present, but there are also experiences. And these experiences are meant to teach us how things work as well. The other point we have to understand is that when Krishna comes to the planet, there are Vrajavasis who are eternal associates. There are Vrajavasis who have come in touch with him for the first time because they have qualified through their austerities. For them, there are some aspects of karmic reactions that can be taken care of. So it's just not the eternal associates. There are also those who have come in touch with him for the first time, who have developed that aspiration, and any little aspiration, any little doubt is removed during that experience when Krishna's Baumalila happens. There's the other part to it. Um, you said everything starts with identity. When we are engaging in our life duties, example, job, interaction with family, doing um, the gardening, etc., we get absorbed in that identity. How do we maintain identity of servant of Krishna? Was Arjuna thinking he's a servant of Krishna while killing, slaughtering soldiers? Can we think of Krishna while we are at work? The answer is Krishna, even Krishna, observes what's going on in our heart and takes a complete picture. He is not really nitpicking, saying, oh, look, while he's gardening, he's not thinking about me. While he's cooking, he's not thinking about me. He doesn't do that. What he does is he's taking where the life direction of life is. If you are gardening, you also think of the deity in the house, and you're gardening because the deity is in the house and you want to preserve the surroundings nicely. When there's boga being made, you're cooking for the deities. When you go to work, you're arranging for all of this in a smooth way until it becomes easier and easier and easier by the mercy of the Lord. So there really isn't a necessity for us to basically constantly think of Krishna during those activities. To answer your question, there isn't a necessity for Arjuna to constantly meditate on Krishna whilst he is firing arrows. That condition is like Yashoda Maya. Yashoda Maya doesn't have to think of Krishna while she is doing anything. She is always naturally the mother of Krishna. As a consequence, there is no contradiction. In a similar fashion, as devotees make advancement, then lesser and lesser would be their identity of this world. Greater and greater would be their identity of the spiritual sky. And every activity, such as gardening, etc., would also be completely, fully given to Krishna. So it's a matter of identity, yes. It is a matter of evolving into an identity, not exactly the activity. So he was killing and slaughtering. Internally, he had already established the fact that Krishna was his dearest friend. So there was no question of him being distracted by that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Now, what does Om mean? And also, we're always told that you have to worship Lord Ganesh before any other prayers, otherwise it won't be accepted. Can you shed any light to this, please? Om is like a call to the God. Yeah. See, Om is primordial sound. Primordial sound. When Om is chanted, it doesn't establish a relationship. You understand God in his feature of being what we would call as impersonal Brahman, where Krishna has the feature of maintaining everything through his effulgence. The effulgence basically is called the Brahman. Om basically can just bring us out of the material sky. It can take us from where we are to the outside of the material sky. It can grant us moksha for sure, but it cannot give us a relationship with the Lord. When we call upon him with his names, Hare, Krishna, and Rama, then we have the ability to develop a relationship. So, this is very important for us to understand that the mantras make a difference. Some mantras grant us access to certain features of God. Other mantras give us his personal association and give us an ability to serve him personally as well. All right. And Ganesh ji, worship of Lord Ganesh. Uh, See, the point is that in our tradition, we basically chant the Narasimha prayers. Lord Ganesh also can be worshipped in certain yagyas. They worship Lord Ganesh before invoking anything. Lord Ganesh is a servant of Lord Vishnu. He is he's one of the most dear servants of Vishnu, because when he was decapitated, when Lord Shiva killed him, it was Vishnu who revived him. And while the Lord revived him, he granted him the blessings of all the prominent avatars. So he has the ability to remove obstacles in all directions by the mercy of Lord Vishnu. And Lord Ganesh is always meditating on Lord Vishnu, and he is also meditating very specifically on Lord Narasimhadev, because he basically places the lotus feet of Lord Narasimhadev on his tusks, and he prays to them for the ability to remove obstacles. So that is the relationship the Vaishnavas understand. All right, so I'll stop here unless there are any more questions. Otherwise, if you want to continue the program, it's entirely up to you. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't think there's any other questions, but it'd be nice if we could just get a little summary from you, Prabhuji, on our discussion today. In the meantime, if there is any other questions somebody thinks of, then they can just fire them. We've got another 15 minutes, and we'd love
Okay.
to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, basically, yes. The I think I can summarize, and then we will. If anybody has questions, we could take those questions as well. Um, the summary is that we started out. I just want to lead you through the structure of our discussion today. We started out by reading the 15:15 verse of the Bhagavad Gita. The 15:15 verse of the Bhagavad Gita primarily says that Krishna is the object or the goal of the Vedas. Then you also have the aspect of Krishna saying he is the compiler of the Vedanta. He is basically the compiler of the Vedas. So through all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. So if there is anything given in the Vedas, then it has to basically lead to him. So when he says this, he is emphasizing Sambandha. He's basically saying you ought to know the relationship between you and I. That is the whole purpose of the Vedas. So he is to be known. When someone says I'm to be known, we're talking about his relationship with us. So that is the purpose of 15:15. The same 15:15 is being spoken of in the Bhagavatam in 1.3.28, where it is said that Krishna is the origin of all the avatars. He is the avatari, and he descends very specifically to help the management of the universe. He also descends to interact with his devotees, more specifically to interact with his devotees. While all the avatars descend with specific functions of management of the universe, he basically interacts with his devotees. To this, we have to understand Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. It is Balaram who expands, and he goes into Dwaraka. Then from Balaram in Dwaraka, then you have the multiple Mahavishnu avatars and the maintenance of the universe, maintenance of the soul. All of that takes place from Sri Balaram, as he is Sevaka Bhagwan. He never leaves Vrindavan. Now, the same principle is being further crystallized in the 4 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam are wanting to convey something to us right at the beginning of Bhagavatam. The Chatushloki basically wants us to understand that you should depend on Krishna. You should completely depend on Krishna or Narayan. This is Lord Narayan. You should depend. And why should you depend? Because everything is being connected to him. So those verses and verses that follow Srimad Bhagavatam talk about the idea of us being souls who are in bodies that are made of matter, we are trying to manage these bodies. It talks about um, what we would call as the devas helping us, and then the devas themselves are subservient to Krishna. So the link between Krishna, the devas, and us is explained in that particular area where everything is being managed by him. So if you want to depend on someone, you should know that he manages everything. You can't really say that he manages rains, or he manages fire, he manages wind, or he manages something else. He manages everything. He is managing every other manager, and that is through a portion of his potency. This is being conveyed at the very outset of Srimad Bhagavatam so that we could depend on him. Because this is the primary condition for those who want to study Srimad Bhagavatam, is they must depend on Harinam. They must depend on the Supreme Lord. Yeah. As a consequence, this is being established. The Govardhan Leela is an extension, and which brings about, the pastime, which brings about this principle of the Bhagavad Gita and the principle of the Srimad Bhagavatam Shattvishloki in complete, I would say, such a wonderful way. There's this beautiful description there. So in Govardhan Leela, we look at a few things that happen. One, we see that Krishna basically is talking to his father and mother and the Gopas. He's telling them to stop karmakanda. He says, stop karmakanda, stop fruitive action. This is also the message of Srila Rupa Goswami. Anya bilashita shunyam, jnana karmadi anabratam, anukulyena Krishna anushilanam bhakti uttama. Uttama bhakti requires that we do not desire or have fruitive desires. We do not desire jnana kanda, which is to leave this world, but we basically want to serve him in a very favorable way, like Srimati Radharani. So anukulyena in that verse refers to Srimati Radharani. Now, what is being said here is in the Govardhan Leela, he says, stop everything. I'm happy with what, you just worship Govardhan Parvat. Why Govardhan Parvat? Because all the pastimes and the most confidential pastimes, all the rasas are contained within Govardhan Parvat. Yeah, all the rasas, all the pastimes are contained within. So when you worship Govardhan Parvat, you're also developing Sambandha, Krishna Sambandha. You are developing Sambandha based on the qualification, they would be able to receive whatever they need from Govardhan. Yeah, because his Govardhan is non-different from Krishna. So he encourages them to worship Govardhan Parvat. He says, stop this karma kanda, worship Govardhan, because he is basically the giver of all opulences. And then he proves it to them. So to prove it, he encourages Indra, he bewilders Indra to pour rain and challenge Krishna. And then he protects the Brajavasis. Yeah, this is all arranged by Yogamaya. These are interactions. When these interactions happen, the devotees forget he is the Lord. They are interacting in love. And the Lord forgets he is the Lord. He is also interacting in love, which is what we wanted to also convey, that this is all an interaction of love between the Lord and his dear servants. All right. So I think I've summarized as well. If there is any other question I could take.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the very wonderful class.
Yes, Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Jai Govardhana.
Rimpi Mataji has a question, I think, Prabhuji. She says, please, can you make clear to, or maybe which means how to stop fruitive activities or actions? Can you make clear?
Yeah, I will. One moment. Did Taruni, rather, did you have a question? Because there was one Mataji who just spoke up. Was there a question, or was it just a statement? I think. Okay. All right. So there was someone who came.
I think she's just saying thank you for a wonderful
Okay.
class.
Okay. So okay, I misunderstood then. Okay, because all right. All right. There are two questions. I'll just take it from Rimpi and there's Bharti who are asking questions. Can you make fruitive actions? Does it mean not to make any progress in life? Fruitive actions, what we are trying to do is we're quite different. Fruitive action means that we are desiring something should happen. This should happen, that should happen. All of these are fruitive actions. Yeah. So for example, sometimes there are certain things that we desire in life, let this happen. And then we worship the Lord with that in mind. And then we worship the Lord with wanting to end some suffering. All of these are considered to be of a lower level. This is not forbidden. Even for these, you come to Krishna, but it is of a lower level compared to wanting to serve him. So The idea is there are many, many desires that are carried in our heart because our consciousness is in the mode of passion. We are passionate, and as a consequence, we are very attached to outcomes. Because we are very attached to outcomes, we have multiple desires and we want to fulfill those desires. Yeah, we are very passionate. As a consequence, we basically ask for this and ask for that. There's a lot of attachment in life. Now, this occurs in that particular level, but then if we go to Krishna with all of these, it is still good. Our acharyas say, go to Krishna. Even if you have so many desires, go to him. Our acharyas say that's perfectly fine. However, the best behavior is for us to really desire wanting to serve him. And if we desire to serve him, he will provide for us automatically, just as much as he provided for the Vrajvasis. Yeah, just as much as for the Vrajvasis. Just serve, and then he will protect and he will provide, because it is like saying, Krishna, you don't know what we need, so he knows what we need. And the more and more and more we get closer to him, the greater would be our ability to appreciate what's being given, because if we accept it, then it's wonderful. Yeah, that's also a very deep siddhanta. I've explained it in so many of my classes. Yeah, to accept things. What does rasa mean? Rasa means relationship. Rasa basically means there's a certain taste that's available when we desire to relish a mango. There's a taste. Now, because there's a certain taste that's available in relishing a mango, because there's rasa in the mango, different mangoes have different flavors. How do you know the different flavors? Then you know the different flavors by tasting them, because every mango has a rasa. There's a juice which is being tasted. So relationships themselves are also of the same nature. And as a consequence, there, when we use the word rasa, we are talking about the taste which Krishna, basically the taste of coming in touch with Krishna in a specific relationship. So some devotees are friends, so they have sakyaras. Some are servants, so they are in dasyaras. Some are parents, so there's vatsalyaras. Ras means to be able to appreciate Krishna in that particular, what do you call it, connection. Okay, so I can take a couple of more questions. Um,
We have there's a private question. Uh, says uh, if devotees have the chart done and he's been recommended to worship or do some puja for the demigods, as devotees, should we just leave it on Krishna or should perform those?
See, this is basically a question that I would like to address. If someone wants to write to me, they can, because we do not, the idea is that there are multiple things that we can do. We just don't want to worship demigods for the purpose of getting things, because Krishna can give us. But you can't make demands of Krishna. You have to accept whatever arrangement he makes, which means if there is going to be a deluge that comes, which is going to take everything away, and then Krishna is going to make a favorable arrangement, we should be able to accept that as well. So the point is that with Krishna, we cannot make demands. With Krishna, we simply want to serve him. And then whatever desires exist in our heart, we are able to fulfill those desires to the extent to which they are favorable towards bhakti, because ultimately worship of Krishna and coming in touch with Krishna is to develop a deeper level of devotional service. Yeah, this is how it is. But the context in which you ask, I need to understand a little bit more. So please do engage with me privately, and I would be happy to explain this. Because this is, I can't give a blanket statement, because there are different ways to approach the same issue.
Thank, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Wonderful. So I think we're getting near to the time, and but I mean, I would like to ask you to stay with us because we've got a lot more. If you have time, we got a lot, a lot more coming in the program. And but thank you so much for a wonderful class and making time for us today, Prabhu. And just want to give you three